Hey folks, Rob here bringing another tutorial video. This one's going to be a part 4 out of a probably 5-part series on seaborne assaults, beaches, and landing craft. Now the first 3 are already out. There's 2 on landing craft and 1 on beaches, so I recommend you watch those before getting into this one, because here we tie it all together into the actual seaborne assault itself. Now I'm going to try and cover everything on the seaborne assault chapter on this video, and then in the 5th video we'll just do a couple tutorials, practice runs, see what it actually looks like, and applying everything that we have learned to date. We have a lot to get to. Let's get to it. So a couple reminders, setup restrictions. Now at Defender you cannot set up on the beach, just hinterland, with the exception obviously of beach obstacles, things like mines, tetrahedrons, wire, all that can be set up on beaches, but no units of yours can. The attacker landing craft must be loaded to at least 2/3 capacity for infantry and half capacity if carrying 5/8 vehicles, non-DM guns. This just prevents you from sending a whole fleet of empty or minimally manned landing craft to spread out your forces and thereby try and avoid casualties. So you always got to be 2/3 full. And since most standard troop landing craft are probably going to be the LCAs with 39 portage points, you have to means you need about 26 portage points in each one. And if you want to figure out what your vehicles are, again, you just look at the Chapter G divider, find your applicable vehicle type in the Chapter H armor listing table, and it'll give you a weight, and then you just convert it here to a PP cost and lets you know how many you can fit into your landing craft. When it comes to infantry, a couple of caveats, I suppose. One is that the guns, or I should say dismantled mortars, don't cost anything, so it's a free portage point. And if you are a passenger on a conveyance on a landing craft, i.e. if you're a squad that's on a half track on a landing craft, you only pay the cost of the half track, not the units on the conveyance. So just remember that. It's reduced to 0 because you only count the vehicles that they are loaded into or animal packed, etc. Landing craft are used such that the units are not actually physically on the landing craft counter, they're in a cloaking box. So again, your opponent's going to see a bunch of landing craft, amphibious vehicles, what have you, coming towards him, and he's not going to know what's in each one, much like gliders and chutes. It's not until you drop the ramp and jump on the beach that you figure out what's exactly there. As we talked about on the landing craft video, when it comes to 5/8 counters, they must always be stacked in a proper order in the cloaking box that they're going to be coming off of the landing craft. And this is the order that they're affected in. So, for example, if the lead vehicle of a 3 vehicle landing craft is destroyed, maybe turned into a blazing wreck from a defending fire shot, the 2 vehicles behind it will not be able to exit the landing craft until that one wreck is removed. And there are ways to do that kind of thing. So just remember the order that they're stacked on the cloaking card is the order that they're coming off of the landing craft. And it's very important. And that's only for 5/8, not for infantry half-inch counters. They can move willy-nilly. Once your landing craft is beach, you must vacate the premises as quickly as possible. There's no time for shirking. You're going to jump off the landing craft, whether you're in the water or whether you make it to the beach proper, and you conduct your assault, because your landing craft is going to be recalled the moment that it's been abandoned, or I should say unloaded. The minute the last troop is off, on your next turn, they're going to up ramp, they're going to pull themselves off the sandbars, and they're going to go back to the mothership to resupply. When it comes to amphibians, and in this case we're talking things like the Duck, or maybe even the Sherman Duplex Drive if you're carrying troops, but basically it's an amphibian that has a troop complement. Amphibians are going to be recalled the minute that they enter the hinterland. Again, their purpose is to get you to the beach, not to necessarily punch through with the assault. So once you are in a hinterland in an amphibian, all you have to do is take a normal task check using the highest morale of the passengers and or crew. And then if you pass it, carry on. If you fail it, then the amphibian's going to be recalled. So just remember that. And then last thing about beaches, reminder that there's no multi-hex fire groups. It's only whatever's inside the hex that you can use. So here, for example, we're using this D-Day scenario. It's involving Mike Sector, or Mike Red Sector, where the Canadians Royal Winnipeg Rifles are coming ashore. So you can see I've got 6 landing craft plus LCAs, as well as an LCT-4 to carry a couple Fireflies, as well as this AVRE engineer vehicle. I've also got 4 duplex drive Shermans just to help augment the force. And if you look at the complements for the units, you'll see that each one is well over the 26. Obviously, you cannot exceed the portage point capacity of the conveyance, but it's between 26 and 39 total points. So, reminder, squads are worth 10, half squads are worth 5, weapons are worth what they're worth, dismantled mortars are worth 0, and when it comes to leaders, usually your first 4 are always no cost. It's when you start having more than 4 leaders that you start worrying about paying their portage point cost. So I've got my forces, which is basically a complete company, as well as a platoon augmenting him, and a platoon of sappers augmenting him as well. So split up over 6 landing craft. So remember, 2/3 full, and the LCT 4 in this case is only the 330 portage point one. It's enough to carry the 3 tanks. This must be at least 50% capacity. So back to the actual tutorial itself. So when it comes to amphibians, let's bring in an American Marine LVTM. So in this case here, you can see it's a Marine capable because it has a superscript 3. Let's zoom in a little. There we go. It's open topped, and it also has a portage point capacity, which means it can carry troops. So if you were to put in a couple of U.S. Marines, there's 10, there's 20 portage points worth. The landing tank can safely carry it. Now, when it comes to passengers, first of all, the crew is always going to be CE. In order to use the vehicle, they have to be CE. However, should they want to at some point, they can always choose to button up, in which case they hunker down, and then you just have to defeat the armor, not the they won't get any modifier for the armor, but you have to defeat the armor itself with your defensive fire shot. And the passengers will always be hunkered down as well when you're buttoned up. On the other hand, should your crew stay crew exposed, you have the option of buttoning up your passengers, or you could also crew expose your passengers as well. So say they have some means of returning fire, you can use them in that respect. Just bear in mind that the regarding CE, they are only CE through the target facing. All right, so they won't be able to get any side shots off. It's got to be through the target facing of the vehicle that they're on. Every squad can freely deploy when entering plane of watercraft. So even these guys here, if you wanted to, you could break them down into 4 half squads. Why you would? Well, it depends on your strategy, I suppose. Bear in mind, we're going to get into this, but once you're in on the beaches or in shallow water, you don't break. All you do is become casualty reduced, which means your half squads are going to die rather quickly. So while it helps to split up your initial allotment of, remember, filling up that 2/3 capacity, once you get to the actual beach proper, you may you want to make sure that you are redeploying into a full squad as quickly as possible. Should it come down to doing a retreat, so let's get rid of that. So you're doing a beach evacuation. This would be Pacific Theater again, so let's get rid of those for now. Make these guys a full squad. All right, and we want to escape for whatever reason. Now, it's only 29 portage points. We have 30, which means only 2.5 squads worth can go in. So these guys can all enter in. This squad can freely break into a half squad. All right, and he can join the party. So this guy has to find his own way off the beach. Just remember, that's a free deployment. You don't have to use a leader for that, and that's to get on the landing craft from off board, or as in setting up, or if you're doing an evacuation and you need to retreat back to your landing craft, what have you, watercraft, you can get a free deploy to fit inside it. All right, so when it comes to the beach itself, let's get rid of those. Actually, get rid of these two. All right, every non-prisoner cavalry on the beach or in the shallow water, this also applies for that. And in this particular case, we have 3 hexes of beach, 3 of shallow water, and everything to the left of this red line is going to be deep ocean. Water obstacle, if you fall off the boat there, you're dead. So on shallow water and or on the beach, you become fanatic while you're in those locations. Right? Say this was, do we have an enemy tank? All right, we throw Panzer IV here. Because you are fanatic, you no longer have to take patsies. So if you're in a beach location and there happens to be armor adjacent, even in a hinterland, you can automatically advance into it to do your close combat. And you are always fanatic before any defensive fires. So even if you dismount, let's bring in a landing craft. So this landing craft has maneuvered, it's landed, it's dropped its ramp, and the troops jump off it. The minute you exit the vehicle, you are now fanatic. So before any defensive first fire can happen against you, you'll get all the benefits of fanaticism that entails. All right, so we covered leaving the beach, no patsy. Jumping off the landing craft immediately gets you fanatic. And again, this happens, say this thing runs aground. All right, the landing craft's running aground here. It drops its ramp. You jump off the ramp and into the water itself. Again, you become fanatic immediately. Now, because of the way things work on the beaches, you will never break when you start failing morale checks. So even if you have a leader here, let's give him a 9-2. All right, and the 9-2 buys it from defensive fire. You will not have to take a leader loss morale check. You'll have to take a leader loss task check. So the worst that'll happen is you'll be pinned, but you'll never take a leader loss morale check itself. Any heat of battle that results in berserk or surrender is always going to be battle hardening itself. So you're never going to go berserk when you're in the water or on the beach. You're never going to surrender. You're just going to battle harden. So, which is quite a powerful effect. All right, so back to the units on the beach. You do suffer a casualty reduction, however. So if this tank were to fire, cause a morale check, this unit fails its morale check. It does not break, it just reduced to a half squad, possibly ELRing, but at a minimum, it is just reduced to a half squad. When it comes to AFVs, and we have a disabled main gun. This one doesn't have one. Let's bring in our duplex. Duplex drive Sherman. All right, it hits the beach. It's got a 75, and we fired and we made a mistake. We broke our gun. We try and repair it our next turn, and now we disabled our gun. Normally, this vehicle would be under recall. On the next turn, it tries to exit the board as quickly as possible. However, in an amphibious or seaborne invasion, that doesn't happen. You ignore the recall. All the penalties of being under recall still apply. You get the +1 to hit and task checks and all that kind of stuff. However, the vehicle itself will not be forced to leave the battlefield. It can carry on doing. It's just heavily penalized. And it may receive more than one stun, which could be cumulative effects. So You're never going to permanently lose your disabled vehicles. They're always going to have a chance of doing something as long as you can make your rolls. All right, so next thing up is aircraft. All right, so let's give us a British fighter bomber. All right, you have a 44 here. Let's not give him any bombs. He comes in. He wants to attack that Mark IV that's sitting there on the beach. So he starts his run. When you do your sighting task checks, and I made a video on aircraft where all this is explained, but before you can conduct any kind of ground attack, you must do what's called a sighting task check. Using the 8 morale of the plane as a base, there's various modifiers, AFE, moving and open, perfectly concealed, friendly units in 4 hexes of you. All these modifiers apply, and then you make a die roll to see if you can make your sighting task check. When it comes to seaborne invasion, you can ignore friendly units that are on the beaches or in the shallow ocean. They do not count for the purposes. So that's a +1 to your die roll. You don't have to worry about that. So in this particular case, we have a full AFV. If I can find the sighting task check. All right, so these are the sighting task checks. So in this particular case, if a target is within 4 hexes friendly to the aircraft, we do not apply this +1. All the other modifiers, however, do apply. So in this particular case, when I target the Panzer IV, it's a vehicle is a -1. It is not entirely concealed as a -2. With our morale of 8 means an 11 or less. We'll there you go. I almost got a sighting task check, which brings me to sighting or mistaken attacks. Normally, when you roll mistaken attack, 12, a modified 12 or higher, your opponent can grab your plane and move it to wherever he wants to, and basically you're going to end up strafing or bombing your own dudes. Again, with a seaboard invasion, you ignore all units on the beach, so he'll still get control of your plane, but he can only attack units that make it to the hinterland. Right, so he can never attack units on the beach that are approaching in the ocean, what have you. He can only attack things that are in the hinterland area. Now the same applies with a spotter plane. So if we have a spotter plane, here, let's use this guy here. All right, we have a British or American spotter plane. He's flying around trying to call in some OBA. And he wants to lay down an AR on this guy here. Before he can do anything, he must do a sighting task check. So the same modifiers apply. Again, we ignore any units, friendly units within 4 hexes on the beach or the shallow ocean. If I had rolled a modified 12 or more, then it would be a mistaken attack. So what would happen is this AR would immediately turn into an FFE1, and your opponent would be able to put it anywhere he wants. Not anywhere, there are limitations. Basically, the closest friendly unit to the location of the FFE. However, because of the peculiarities of the Seaborne Assault, he cannot affect units on the beach. So he cannot target your landing craft LVTM. All he can do is move it to the inside and try and attack units on the hinterland or have no effect at all. So a mistaken attack with a spotter plane means that your opponent can use his FFE any way that he wants. Just bear in mind, it cannot affect units in the beach. So he cannot lay it here with the off chance of trying to land some area effects into 156 and 157. He would not be able to do that. He'd have to target the unit completely and ignore the beaches and such. When it comes to evacuation, which is obviously the reverse of the Seaborne Assault, let's get rid of some of this stuff here. You can always treat this building, or sorry, this landing craft as a building for road purposes. So our unit, remember, you don't break on the beach itself, so this would have to happen when you're in the hinterland area. For whatever reason you break, let's get rid of that. And you're under an evacuation order. These guys are gone as well, so it's a pretty safe run. You can use this as a route destination. So you can go there for 1, for 2, for 3, and then you can jump on the craft for a fourth of its move and 1 movement point from you. And you have a maximum of 4 movement factors to load up. So even though a broken unit has 6, you can only use 4, much like any other conveyance loading it up. Just remember that. You can treat landing craft, wrong one. You can treat landing craft like a building for route purposes, as a destination for when you're routing in and an evacuation. Normally, because again, while you're assaulting on the beach, you're not going to get broken. It's only when you make it to the hinterland that you have that chance of going back. When it comes to broken recalled units, typically those are not worth anything, although once you exit a broken unit off the map, you're supposed to make a morale check to see if it comes back, otherwise destroyed. You do count exit VP for broken and recalled units, as well as heroes as well. So just something to bear in mind when it comes to the evacuation. All right, so let's look at beach obstacles. Now, there's only 5 that we have to worry about. So we have tetrahedrons, and they come in 2 varieties. You can get the color version for the water if you wish. But there's 2 types. You have with wire and you have without wire. You have wire obstacles themselves. You have anti-personnel and anti-tank and or anti-boat mines. So they're treated the same, anti-tank and anti-boat mines. And you can also have pangees. Now there's restrictions to some of this, so we'll get into that as we go. Normal hip rules apply as well. Now when it comes to tetrahedron, so let's get rid of this for now. Just hide this stuff over here. They can be set up in shallow ocean, or they can be set up in the beach hexes. Again, reminder, we have 3 beach and 3 shallow. Everything to the left of the red line is going to be deep ocean. So nothing can be set up here and nothing can be activated here. If it goes down out here, then it's gone as well. Tetrahedrons are not an obstacle to line of sight or hindrance. However, they're not open ground. So if I have a unit and he's moving merrily through the tetrahedron, he won't get the moving and open non-assault. Excuse me, he won't get the FFMO modifier against him. He'll just get the -1 for non-assault movement, but it's not considered open ground, so it offers a little bit of protection. It costs vehicle 1 extra MP to enter this location. Now, if you have wire, you have to do the normal wire procedure. You might have bog on your vehicle. If it's just a tetrahedron without wire, then it's not going to attack the AFE itself. The only thing tetrahedrons attack are landing craft. So if our landing craft here comes to this way, we have heavy surf in effect, so now we drift. We could be forced into this location, and then we have to worry about being attacked. So for us, we look at this modifier here. We have a -1 because of the heavy surf, which means on a 3 or less, we're going to be destroyed. Hopefully, it didn't roll very well. So this landing craft is now destroyed in this location, which means that the ramp will always be up. However, if you have infantry units, they can bail over the sides at half their move. And any vehicles, should this be the LCT transport carrying our Fireflies, for example, and it is wrecked, the ramp stays up and your vehicles are stuck on board. There's no way you can get them off. So all that to say is the landing craft, because of the inherent anti-boat mines attached to tetrahedrons, could be destroyed on a modified 2 or less. So the only modifier we worry about is heavy surf, and most people probably don't play with heavy surf because it adds too much variability to not making it to the beach. So it's quite a low roll. It's only 1 or 2 to get impacted, but as you saw, I rolled a 1. If you rolled a 1, in addition to just being wrecked or run aground, basically this thing rips a hole in your hull. If you roll a final 1, you've actually detonated an AB mine. So in this case, because I did roll a 1, we have to endure that as well. So let's cover AB mines in a second. Just remember that AB mines come in two ways. One is attached to a tetrahedron, or you can just put them in the hex themselves. Right? Again, they're treated exactly like anti-tank mines. They're just for anti-boating purposes. So when it comes to AB mines and AT mines, the way it works is just, again, like an AT mine. So our landing craft unluckily rolled a 1, landing on the tetrahedron, which means we now have to worry about AT mines and AB mines. Let's assume that we have two strength AT mines, AB mines in our defensive system. So now I have to do a roll to see if we make our 2. So the way anti-tank mines work is you have to roll this number or less to indicate an attack. So if it's a 3 AT, 50-50 chance you could be attacked. 4, 5, or 6, you will be free. However, again, we're going to use heavy surf because it adds more chaos. We're going to add a +1 to this roll, which means let's put this back down to a 2, which basically means I need to roll a 1 or less on this, and I don't roll it. So we were, in fact, not attacked by anti-boat mines. Now, if we do, if we had rolled that 1 modified with a +1, then we would have had an AB mine attack. That's resolved on the unarmored vehicle line, and it's treated as an unarmored vehicle. So we look at our 36 table, which, as we all know, sucks. All right, and you make your roll on that. So in this case, I rolled a 3. Okay, that gets better. Now, that's a 4 KIA. So the way the damage works with AB mines is you take the number 13, you subtract your original die roll, which for us was a 3, and the balance is the number of damage points that the landing craft gains. So we rolled a 3. From 13 gives us 10 damage points. So if you remember, the LCA only has 3. As a matter of fact, you can look at it on right here, DP3. If we had used our LCT4, it has a DP of 10. So we would have sank this with all hands on board. Again, if it's in shallow water, then there's a chance that the passengers can get off. Not vehicles, because your ramp will be stuck up and you're unable to drive off the boat itself. Infantry can just bail over the sides. And anytime you cause 2 or more DP, you also cause a blaze. Now, blazes in water obviously don't work. However, there is a chance for drifting smoke. Possible, depending obviously if there's a breeze or not. Now, the passengers themselves of a AB mine attack will also be taken a collateral attack. So in this particular case, we have a LCA carrying these guys here. All right. Again, this is all done in the cloaking box. You don't actually move the counters until you get off the landing craft. But all these units here would have to suffer a 16 firepower attack, collateral attack. So again, a 3. Yeah. So I just rolled a 1 KIA, so we'd have to randomize between all these units. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 2 kills. These 2 would be gone, and everything else would be broken. Unpossessed weapons would be lying at the bottom of the ocean, because once you unpossess a weapon in a wrecked landing craft, it's gone. So you need to possess it. So these are all gone as well, just because this guy got wrecked completely, and these guys are now broken. Now remember, they're not in the water or on the beach, so they could in fact be broken. But basically, they're going to be stuck in this location until they rally with this wrecked landing craft. That's basically how AB mines work. Again, it's exactly like an AT mine. With an AT mine, you roll this number in this case a 2 or less, indicates you do have a successful AT attack, and then you roll on the applicable table for the strength or the 36 column for your AT or your AB mines. Now, when it comes to AP mines, typically AP mines will be HIP, and they can only be placed in soft sand or hard sand if it's adjacent to a hinterland hex. Right, so if this is a 3-beach hard sand beach, they would only be able to have AP mines in the first row adjacent to the hinterland location. Now, you cannot also contain pangees with minefields. It's either or. Either you have a pangee or you have a minefield. You cannot have both. Right, and when it comes to pangees, again, much like a minefield, it can be set up only on the beach. I should have mentioned AP mines cannot be set up in the water. They'll be gone. They're only effective on the beach and obviously on the hinterland. Same with the pangees. You can only put them on the beach, and they share the same effects. So if we have a 3-wide beach of hard sand, pangees can only exist on the hex closest to the hinterland. All right, so lastly, let's look at wire. Wire, much like the previous stuff, can only exist on the beach, not in the water, and it can only it cannot coexist with the pangee. It's an either or kind of thing. The only ocean hexes it can go into are ones that have tetrahedrons, and that's why you have the tetrahedron model. This is treated just like a wire. These two are synonymous. Just this one also includes the tetrahedron itself and the possible AB mine ability. It always gives you a, so let's use this, get this out of the way. Let's use our LCT4, and it's coming in, and again we have wire here. Actually, let's put it here on the beach. All right, for whatever reason, this is where a landing craft wants to go in. We want to beach across that hex side. Now we have to worry about running aground and or getting impaled by the tetrahedron. So the first thing we would do, and this is the defender's choice what goes first. You can do the AB mine attack if you have. You can do the wire attack, but it's defender's choice on how you do that. So this is for the AB attack. We rolled a 6. Obviously, we didn't get our 2 or less, so that doesn't happen. We roll for the tetrahedron. We rolled a 3. Again, heavy surf doesn't apply in this case, so it doesn't matter. Now, if you look at the modifiers, there's a +1 die roll to the landing craft's aground die roll, unless it's a -3 or -4 size. If you look at this LCT4, it is in fact a -4 for target size, so it will not be eligible for the +1 running aground die roll. So next up, let's try and run it aground. We failed because we rolled so low. Again, this was covered under the landing craft. And then lastly, we have a wire bog check. Right, so we finally bogged down. We are beached across that hex side, but we're hung up on the wire. And now at this point, you can drop ramp and continue on to do what your thing. The important thing is that we missed the bombs, and the tetrahedron didn't destroy our landing craft. So, in the process of rolling for the running aground, should you have rolled a 1 on the colored die roll, that would destroy the wire on the tetrahedron, and then you just have to flip it over to the non-wire side. All right, amphibians, much like wire in a interior hex, when you enter that location, you'll have to endure the typical attack, bog, what have you. You won't be attacked by AB mines, but you will have to worry about bogging yourself, miring yourself, depending on how poorly you roll as you enter that wired location. We're not going to really talk about boats, but we're not talking landing craft. We're talking the normal boats you kind of paddle, maybe assault boats, soft-skinned, typically. They're automatically eliminated when they enter any one of these tetrahedron wire locations. and anything on board a vehicle that is wrecked. So if we turn this thing into a wreck, anything that is unpossessed, as we said, will fall to the bottom of the ocean and is gone forever, never to be seen again. So it must be physically possessed, capable of being carried by the unit in order for it to be possessed. So even if all these guys were fine, and we say we also had a gun, 57 long AT gun, let's say, if nobody is manning, the gun itself would be lost because you can't float the gun by itself. You can carry your own individual portage point capacity, but you obviously won't be able to manhandle a gun once it's sunk offshore. Wire is going to be NA if heavy surf is in effect. You don't have to worry about that. The high waves will usually wash over that. And if you're in an ocean location, your wire exit die roll for infantry. So say we have our units here and we have to get under the wire. We rolled a 1, so that's good. We add an extra +1 to this, so it actually costs us 2 move to go underneath the wire. And from there we can continue our move. All right, so that was a pretty good roll. All right, let's discuss how do we get rid of this pesky stuff that's in our way. So first of all, the tetrahedron itself can only be destroyed by DCs. So one thing that's popular, and from what I've seen anyways, is a lot of Bangalores, maybe DCs themselves. Bangalores are kind of coming, they're just a buy entry in the Chapter B book on wire disposal, but they can also be used for demining and obstacle destruction, which is what they were used for. So LCP and Imagine LFT and others, no doubt, have started expanding on the Bangalore torpedo capability. So they're letting me use for more things than just blowing up wire. So a tetrahedron can only be destroyed by a DC or Bangalore. An FFE concentration, again, you need to get a KIA, and or an aerial bomb attack. So that's the only ways you can destroy tetrahedrons. Other obstacles, you can use the Chapter B clearance rules. So if you're lucky enough to have some dozers, or in this case we have an AVRE, lets us get over sea walls. If you have that kind of engineering capability, it will obviously help you clear your obstacles. Besides that, you have UDTs. Now, these are only available to the Americans, and that is from 44 against Japanese. So they would send in their frogmen, they would sneak on shore, they would disable much of these obstacles as they could. And this is basically much like a search die roll. There's no counter that I know of. It's just you do a die roll based on a certain location, and that's how many obstacles you can remove, much like a search die roll. So, but that's only available to the Americans facing off against Japanese after 44. Two other things. One is any firepower or HE attack in an ocean hex is halved for the obstacle elimination. So even if you drop a 155 to try and destroy these tetrahedrons, just remember it's going to be halved. So it's going to go down to the, I think that's on the 12. The 12 table versus the 30 table for destruction of a tetrahedron. Because of the cushioning effects of the water, obviously it makes sense. So just remember that. When it comes to bombardment, obstacles are treated as per normal, and tetrahedrons are treated as per wire. So when it comes to a bombardment, typically all your defenses take morale checks. It's treated like a wire, the tetrahedron. All right, so, and then lastly, the last point there, prior to breaching declaration. Once this unit, for example, enters this location, the defender must announce all his attacks prior to the owner of the landing craft declaring his breaching attempt. So this might all happen before he has a chance to utter the word beaching. Just remember that you conduct any attacks prior to declaring the beaching attempt. All right, that's going to do it for this video. So we just covered some basics on landing craft, how to use them to approach. The next video is going to show some examples, and we're also going to go into naval OBA. So typically that's more applicable in the Pacific theater. However, some Western Mediterranean, D-Day, that kind of thing, did see some of that. So we're going to cover all that in the next video. So again, if you have not already, watch the links that you're going to see right now, and they're going to link you to the first two videos on boats, landing craft, as well as the video on beaches. So see you guys next video. Bye-bye.